Okay, no, Nontobeko, I just want to say two things. First of all, whichever way you slice the data, our economic performance since 1994 has been deeply disappointing. Our gross domestic product per capita, which is an imperfect measure, it's increased by only 17.6% over 27 years. That's about 0.7% a year. For example, if you compare with China over the same period, it's increased by about 800%. India has increased by 300%. And the second thing, Nontobeko, is that our unemployment crisis is a national disgrace. It is the most heartbreaking betrayal of the promises and dreams of our liberation. The government has failed the people who fought for so long and so hard for a better life for all. I talk about four periods in the post-apartheid economy. In the first period, we had the gear policy. At the time in 1996, when gear was started, there was no reason, there was no debt crisis, there was no inflation crisis, but the government decided to implement this policy. Between 1996 and 2003, the number of unemployed people increased from 4.6 million to 8 million. The unemployment rate increased from 33% to 40.6%. Now, when gear ends, the government starts spending again in the economy. This is what I am saying that we should do. Government investment spending, for example, increased by 19% a year between 2003 and 2008. State-owned enterprise investment spending increased by 26% every year for 5 years. So what happened during gear? Some people say it's a commodity crisis, but they haven't looked at the data properly. It was a domestically driven boom where every sector in the economy created jobs except mining. We created 3.1 million jobs during this period. So by December 2008, during this boom in our economy, because we weren't implementing these contractionary macroeconomic policies, we created the jobs. Now, between 2009 and now, we have created 226,000 jobs. The labor force has increased by 5.7 million people since December 2008 to March 2021. So we're talking about 13 years where we haven't created any jobs. The number of unemployed people has increased by 5.5 million people. The unemployment rate for Black Africans is 48%. For Black African females, it's 51.15%. In the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, it's almost 50%. So this is a national calamity. And the sad thing about it is that government hasn't really done anything to address this crisis. The youth unemployment rate is 74.7%. But I've been following the president's, he announced the Youth Employment Service in 2018, a month after he became president. And that thing was supposed to have created 1 million jobs. That thing has now created 55,000 jobs. So many initiatives announced from the presidency, these are just gimmicks, as I say, that will not address the unemployment problems. To address unemployment, there's a relationship between GDP growth and employment. So that's the first thing. We have to grow our economy faster. But we must look at the quality of our growth. It mustn't damage the environment. It mustn't exacerbate inequality. It must address gender inequality. So we can't just grow for the sake of it. We must address the quality of the growth as well. And the second thing, we have to change the structure of our economy. You know, one thing that really offends me with South Africans, when they say people are unemployable and that the problem is one of education and skills. That is complete garbage, you know. And let me just explain what I'm talking about. Since December 2008, we haven't created any jobs in our economy. So all the people who come out of the education system, there's no jobs for them. Are you telling me that there are 11 million jobs for people who are educated? No, there are not 11 million jobs for people who are educated. I did a projection at this rate, what it will take to create full employment where everyone has a job except the ones who don't want the jobs. By 2030, we have to create 17 million jobs. And we have to do that while reducing the carbon intensity of our economy and reducing emissions. We have to do that as well while eliminating these fossil fuel hotspots that you see in Mpumalanga, what you see in Sasolburg, and you see in Durban with the refineries. So that is a challenge that we face as a country. So we have to address this crisis head on. We cannot be pointing a water gun at a blazing house. So that's basically what I think of our unemployment initiatives. And the government also had another initiative called the Job Summit in 2018, I think, which was supposed to create 275,000 jobs a year. It hasn't created those jobs yet. So I think we have to get serious as a country, develop a proper economic development strategy that will create jobs for our people.